What is up, everybody? I hope everybody is doing well. Those of you who are tuning in, I recognize this is an awkward time to be tuning in. But if you happen to catch the replay, make sure you hit that like button. I really would appreciate it. All right, we're not going to be on here long. I want to have a discussion about not falling for the okie doke. And I recognize that, again, that this is an awkward time for me and this, that, and the other, but we're going to try to make it do what it do. So if you join in, you join in. If not, make sure you catch the replay and all that. All right, so we're going to jump into it here. So I appreciate everyone who's tuned in thus far. Do make sure that you say hello so that way I can acknowledge you. All right, so what do I mean by falling for the okie doke, right? So every election season, every we have these news cycles, things along those lines, and we always like falling for this trickery that goes on, right? In education, we're falling for it. The voting cycles, we're falling for it. Right? The politicians start speaking, we're falling for it. The church officials start speaking, we start falling for it. And it's really just frustrating to see these things, right? Because we're talking about the same things that we talked about in the 1960s, talking about the same thing, right? Some of the same ideas. Malcolm X talked about all this type of stuff, and it's just crazy. It's just crazy to keep spinning our wheels, not making any progress. Now, certainly we made some progress. I don't want to be too hyperbolic, but we made some progress along the way, but certainly not enough. Certainly not enough. Hello to you, Rhonda. I really appreciate you joining in. And yes, please make sure to say hello that way I can acknowledge you. So I wanted to play a couple of videos today just to talk about what I'm talking about when I say this, right? So I made a video today. It was one of those driving videos. I'll probably drop that tomorrow morning. Talking about what's wrong with being a monolith, right? Us being a monolith isn't necessarily a negative thing. It is a negative term. I don't want to say it's not, but it can be a negative term. But I wanted to try to jump into as far as what's going on and all that. So let's see. My connection's a little bit slow today. I don't know what's up with that, but we'll get into it. All right, so we're gonna play a couple of videos here, and then we're gonna get into the main crux of what I wanted to talk about here. So a couple of videos here that I got from Instagram. So here we go. This is about falling for the okie doke, right? And this particular young lady has figured it out. Stop falling for the okie doke. I'm not gonna keep going for this craziness here. So here we go.
And I went to college. I have a master's degree. I make very good money for my age. My husband did not go to college. And I've talked about this on here before, and I don't think you understand. I don't think you understand it. So I'm going to throw it into perspective for you, and I say it not to brag, but to hopefully help any of you. I have a college degree. He has a high school diploma. He went to trade school right after high school. He got his certificates and everything. And here we go. So this past July, he had already brought home more than my gross salary this year. Come December, he will have quadrupled my salary. Quadrupled it. If he decides to pick up overtime on a weekend, a 2-day weekend, if he picks up overtime, he brings home that weekend, just in those 2 days, more than I make in a 2-week check. I have a master's degree. He has a high school diploma. So that reason right there is why I will not push college on anyone. If you think that college is not for you and you want to try a trade school, obviously look into it, see if you think that you have what it takes, and then 100% do it. Do it. I don't think that enough people are talking about this. And it is 100% worth it if you stick with it. So everyone pushes college, and
So that's her talking about this situation between college, right? This is falling for the okie doke, right? Everybody thinks that they have to go to college. Obviously, maybe I'm not the person to give this lesson, but I certainly don't think that everybody needs to go to college. I don't think that. Let's see. Why is it still share screen? Remove. So I'm not pushing that, right? We got to make the best decisions for us, for our financial future, and whatever's going to take. And if that means open up a business, if that means going into real estate, if that means looking into bitcoins and other precious metals and other type of things, then go for it. Go for it. So stand by a second here. I got to check my connections here. Hold on a second. All right, I apologize about that. Checking the connections. All right. So that's that. All right. So we'll continue on with this falling for the Okie Doke, right? So many people voted in the, what I would say, crazily in this last election. So why did they do it, right? So let's check out this brother's video about falling for the Okie Doke.
And why MAGA Republicans resent federal workers. Federal workers are highly educated Americans who until recently had secure jobs doing what they loved in exchange for a middle-class life and retirement. They were living the American dream we were all promised as kids. Go to school, work hard, and have the American dream. But for millions of Americans, that dream never came true, leaving them bitter and looking for someone to blame. So who's to blame? Just look at this chart here for a second. This is the balance of power of Congress over time. After the Great Depression from 1934 to 1996, the entire time Trump claims America was great the first time, Democrats controlled the House for 58 out of the 62 years, and the Senate for 52 out of those 62 years. And they used those decades of power and control to build labor unions, to guarantee good pay and benefits, to protect your rights as a worker, and to guarantee a safe workplace. The work Democrats did over those 60 years is the definition of the American dream we have today. And we did it all with a significantly lower economic output, because the wealth created from that economic output was taxed fairly. But Republican billionaires fought it the entire time. And after 60 years of losing, they knew they needed a new war, which is why in the 70s they created the Heritage Foundation, which then propped up an actor named Ronald Reagan. And they gave him a policy playbook called the Mandate for Leadership, which was basically the 1980 version of Project 2025. And Reagan immediately went to work for them with the trickle-down Reaganomics bullshit that destroyed the middle class and exploded the national debt, with the demonization of the federal workforce, and with new culture wars rooted in class, race, gender, orientation, and religion. And they paired this all with a war on information because they knew none of this bullshit would stick to a well-informed electorate. So they came after history books, universities, and news outlets. And they did all of this for one very simple reason. It's cheaper to feed you misinformation than it is to feed you and your family. Now, after 40 years, millions of hungry, misinformed citizens look at immigrants, homeless veterans, and federal employees as if they're the enemy, all while Republican leaders and their billionaire donors live out their distorted version of the American dream, paid for with the wealth generated by the American working class.
So what this brother was saying here is that the educational system has been corrupted, co-opted. The working class has been co-opted. We're working with entities who are just not interested in our well-being. They're interested in their own pocketbooks, making sure that their 401ks and making sure that their endowments and their tax breaks continue to go on, while you and I, the working class, have to continue to eke out a living. Price of everything has gone up, not just price of eggs, and everything has gone up. So we're bearing the brunt of this, right? I don't pretend to get into too much politics, but I do know that there was just they're looking to pass bills that are about the budget, and it's just been a mess and a nightmare. So this is all what's going on here. So I do apologize concerning what's going on here with the buffering here. I'm doing the best I can with my connection here. So anyway, I want to play. So those are the two videos, right? And another thing that has been going on here is the co-option of the media, right? CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the firing Joy Reid, all this type of stuff, right? All of this is just to keep certain of our voices to be silenced. Silencing certain of our voices, which controls our opinions. The items that we consume controls our opinions, right? And all this, right? So here we got Amanda Seales, who goes on Don Lemon's show. Don Lemon has a podcast now, one of the former hosts of CNN, who was unceremoniously terminated from CNN, won a few $1 million after that lawsuit, right? So he has Amanda Seales, who I don't pretend to know a lot about, but somebody who I do follow kind of a little bit, kind of put me onto this. So let's watch this about Amanda Seales telling Don Lemon exactly who he used to work for. Let me present, share screen.
For this particular conversation, but I do want to focus on what she said here politically. So shout out to Case Study QB for this clip here. Here's Don Lemon and Amanda Seales It's interesting because she is basically going to tell Don Lemon to his face about what corporate media really does. Listen to this.
You know, you were on cable news. They rarely show what's going on in the world. Rarely. Especially when it has to do with resistance. Because cable news and mainstream media is here for the purpose of suppressing resistance. They're not trying to incite the people. They are tools of the propaganda machine. So the effort to show that and encourage people is not going to be utilized on those airwaves. That's why there's such a egregious effort to silence, social media in that way. However,
isn't that interesting that she's saying this to Don Lemon's face, and Don Lemon kind of looks to the side here a little bit because
Don, what is Don Lemon going to say? So the first video that I presented was this young lady who had been preached to about college. You go to college and you get a master's degree, which takes a lot of fortitude to get this. She's not making as much as her husband. Her husband, who is a trade school graduate, you don't know what his trade is dealing with this. Is making more money than this particular woman is in the first video that I showed. Second video I showed talks about the working class having been taken advantage of by the system. Now we got Amanda Seales saying that it's not just the college education system that was pushed to us. It's not just the undermining of workers' rights, workers' wages. It's not just that, but it's the media who is suppressing all this. And what does she say? They are suppressing the ideas of dissent. They don't want any dissent, right? They don't want you knowing stuff, right? That's exactly what Amanda Seales was saying. I work in mental health and Medicaid and Medicare and are no longer paying for a lot of mental health medication. We will soon have a mental health crisis. We've known this. Listen, working in the criminal justice field, one of the two biggest places that mental health issues arise is in prisons and schools. There's not enough talk about this, particularly for schools. How many kids are hopped up on medication or who are dealing with and suffering with so many different maladies and dysfunctions and all that kind of stuff, right? This is the consequence of fatherless homes and sticking your kids on Ritalin and all this type of stuff, right? No discipline. This is the result of that. So yeah, and it is scary. You're absolutely right about that, Rhonda. It's scary. It's gonna, wait till a lot more people become laid off, right? How many people have been laid off, fired, right? I just read today that Tulsi Gabbard, DNS, the head of national security, I believe that's her title, has just fired like 100 or 1,000 workers or something like that. So just fired a bunch of workers. Falling for the okie doke, right? And Tulsi Gabbard was once a Democrat who should be about, as the second video I showed you, should be about worker rights. Co-opted. Absolutely co-opted. I found out more news around the world thanks to TikTok because US isn't going to show us what's going on. Listen, I try to read a lot of different other newspapers, Asian Times, Russian Times, Al Jazeera, just a lot of different news networks like that. The Economist, Foreign Policy, things along those lines. You got to read. You got to broaden your horizons, expand your thinking, because you're just not going to get it. And Don Lemon knows it, right? But he was paid, millions of dollars a year to tell these narratives, and with an earpiece in his ear, cutting people off, right? Because they don't want certain narratives to get on to get out there. And so this is the issue. So we're falling for the okie doke. We keep talking about the same things over and over again, because we're not making that progress that we need to make. Right. I don't want to keep talking about the same things we were talking about 20 and 30 and 40 years ago, but yet here we are still talking about education. How do we educate our children? Still talking about how do we open up businesses? How do we support Black businesses? How do we, game the system? How do we do whatever? Right. We're still talking about these types of items. And if we're still talking about them, then this is an issue that we're not making the particular progress that we're looking for. Right, we're not making that particular progress. Let's play a little bit more of Miss Sabby Sabs as she's talking about Don Lemon. I didn't watch this full interview of what she's saying, but I want to get to more of what I want to play more of Amanda Seals.
Because she's basically telling him about a network like what he was a part of. So she's saying you were a part of a propaganda outlet, which is true. He was. I mean, what do you say to that? At least she said it to his face. To his face. And the look, he just looks down like, ugh.
When you look at France, they didn't even change the pension. They just talked about it. They talked about it. They didn't even take away pension. They were just like, hey, we might do this. And France was like, oh, hell no. We burning cars. In Grenada, the same person was in power for quite some time. And then he got a little too comfy and tried to do the same thing with pensions. And Grenadians was like, whoa. Get him out of there. Get him out of there immediately. And that was that. It wasn't even like a confusion. It was just, finished, party done.
I can remember, speaking of France, I can remember they were talking about, I don't know about the pension thing, but I know they were talking about changing the work hours, going to like 30, something like 32 work hours or 34 or something like that. And they were rioting, right? This is maybe 15 years ago. They were rioting. So this may be what she's talking about. But I can remember that, like, you know, it's really sad. It's really sad that we have gone along with this. We have not gotten to the place where we collectively work together. And this is a big part. I'm going to sum this up at the end. But this is a big part of the problem of MAGA and race that we still have in this country. And this is an issue, right? The reason that the Grenadians, and the French were able to do this is because they think more homogeneously, and we're still so bifurcated. We're still so bifurcated here in the U.S.
So
do you guys understand what Amanda is saying? What Amanda is saying is that I guess she doesn't understand why in the US people are less willing to get out in the streets by like the millions and say F you to the government, F you to, corporate media, to the establishment. Meanwhile, when you look at countries like France and you look at countries like, she mentioned Grenada, I think she's part Grenadian. These people have no problem doing that. I covered the France protest. I think it was like 2 years ago now when that happened. Yeah, they were not letting up. They're like, no, you're not going to increase our retirement age. So where is that energy here in the US? Where is that resilience, right? So we see some of that, obviously, during the pro-Palestinian protests. We saw some of that during the George Floyd protests. But what I noticed is that...
She's talking about the George Floyd protest. Don't forget Occupy Wall Street. That's what they wanted in Occupy Wall Street, right? There was no coherent message, which is why it partly fizzled out. But in the Seattle protests and Occupy Wall Street, that's what it was all about. But they really couldn't give a coherent message to that.
When it comes to economic issues, we don't see that, right? I mean, I look back on it and I think back during the pandemic and all these lockdowns were happening at that point in time. And it's kind of wild and bizarre to me that, like, for the most part, a lot of people just sat back and took it for the most part. And I'm kind of surprised. And I feel like in some of the other countries, they didn't treat it that way. In some of the other countries, they were like, we're giving you checks every month, blah, blah, blah. We're not going to give you no one stimulus or 2-time stimulus. We're going to give you a check every month. And you guys don't have to worry about going to work. You can stay at home, take care of you.
And not only was the problematic, the stimulus checks that we got, first of all, I didn't even get them, right? So I had to write them off of my taxes. I didn't get it, so I had to write them off. But the stimulus checks, like these people were getting stimulus checks every day or once a week, once a month or whatever. We got it once, twice. $200, $1,200, $1,500, whatever it was. I don't remember what it was. But what is that? What is that? I mean, but to the point of Amanda Seals and Sabby Sabs is talking here, it's our fault. We didn't do enough about it. We didn't collectively protest, riot in the streets, or vote them out. That's the issue. We didn't collectively riot in the streets or vote them out of office. That was the issue.
Yourself and your fam. That's what New Zealand did. So I think it's mind-boggling to me too, like how we are not getting out in the streets for the economic issues. And that brings it back to demands and 11 demands. I think it is amazing and it's great that we got out into the streets for Gaza. I think it's amazing and it's great that we got out into the streets for George Floyd. But why aren't we getting into the streets to have a mass movement for economics? And that's the question people need to really start asking. Start tapping your friend on the shoulder and ask them, why aren't we having a movement in this country for economics? I don't know. Because all these different organizations, you see, you have an Answer Coalition. Answer Coalition puts on a lot of events and they have buses that pick up people from these locations and take them all to DC to protest. And that is great and amazing. I don't see Answer Coalition doing that for economics. So what's really happening, folks? Where is that same push when all these people lost their jobs. Look back at the 2008 housing crisis. Like, where is the same push and energy for all these people to get out in the streets for economics? We have to have that conversation, because you see, they do that in France and they did that in Grenada.
I say all of that to say that Americans have been tricked into thinking they're comfortable. And this is done by small incrementations over time that we don't argue enough about, right? When we talk about how when they took your rights for Roe v. Wade, that's when everything should have been just handled. And I'm being careful with my language for obvious reasons, but that is when we as people needed to demonstrate in a way that did not leave confusion about our frustration. You know, you were on.
So that's a really good point there that Amanda brought up. And I know some people in the chat were saying that, you know, we had to work and stuff. Totally get that. Totally get it. But we were also working during the pro-Palestinian protests.
All right, so that's enough of that. So that's what I want to play from her situation there, what she got, what she's saying right there. So that's it. You know, we're not tapped in enough to the media, to our politicians. We leave it to them to run everything. And even though Congress has, last I checked, had a 9% approval rate, 9%, they continue to get voted in every year. The same people continue to get voted in. The billionaire class, thanks to our own judicial branch, said that corporations can effectively act as single citizens and then buy elections. And we continue to go along with it. We continue to go along with it. Now, this is to be the second to last video here, or the last video that I really wanted to talk about. This is Karen Hunter having a debate. I do apologize about the connection here. Having a debate with a caller concerning DEI, which I'm trying to get away from, but this guy's asking a question. Why are we fighting for something that we weren't a part of? We paved a road leading to a mountain. Screaming at the mountain does nothing. You're right about that. But we got to get it. We got to get it together, Miles. We got to get it together to figure out how we're going to, make some headway and some progress. You know, it's mind-boggling. You know, the price of food and everything has gone up. Our wages are stagnant and barely livable, and we watched the corporations take over single family or even multifamily units, buying them up. Right, that was a mean for you and I to get a financial leg up, to become homeowners and investment opportunities, etc. And if they're buying them up and then driving up the prices, and we're just standing around, just hey, what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do? Hello, Cynthia. I believe things are going to change at the midterms. However, that is 2 months away. Midterms are next year, 12 months away, right? Is that what you mean? 2 years? It might. it might. I mean, for me, the answer is a third party, because we have this pendulum swinging back and forth between the two parties, and it's always the same thing. The midterms, they get into office, they do the same things that the other administration was doing. One starts a war, the other one continues the war, continues funding the war. The other, nobody's making any kind of headway into real economic progress. I hope that you're right. We need a third option. No problem. We need a third option. That's the real issue. Is we need a third viable option that is worker related, 100% worker party. That's my solution to it.
Different way. Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're gonna love me. And Karen Hunter is awesome.
I don't know Karen Hunter. She might be. I gotta say fair use here, because I don't know if she tries to get people canceled and all that.
Has to bring heat and energy and knowledge and 2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Other podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Go to Esheko in California. Hey,
how's it going, Karen? Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
So, Karen, I'm just frustrated, man. I'm just trying to understand, like, one minute we hear how DEI really did not benefit Black men, Black women, and the people who really benefited from it were white women and people of the LGBTQ community. And if that's the case, why are we even still talking about DEI?
Because it's in the news.
Why are we still
I agree with you on that. At the same time, it becomes a line of demarcation in terms of, because we know this administration, when they say DEI, they mean black people, and they really mean the N-word. So they're using it as a particular weapon against us. Even if you're correct, the vast majority of recipients of DEI and programs and jobs and things were white women. So what I think the since they made the line us, we're gonna let you know, all of these companies, them cutting it. But I also think, like, it's somewhat unfair. I'm gonna say this with my whole chest, even though I like to target boycott just because it is a show of power. I think it was a little unfair because Target was one of the few places that had programs that benefit people, and I don't think they were going to take it away as much as they were going to remove the language and shift the language around and keep the products in, But once the die was cast, they became a Target, and that was it. And I'm okay with the outcome because that money's not coming back necessarily into our community 50 times over. But I feel like it's now a word game. But to your point, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Again, for me as a black man in my 50s,
my son was saying the same thing, that these terms are, and I'm glad he's starting to pay attention. These terms are really just pejoratives for us. So I'm glad he's starting to pay attention to that. Empathic Char says we've been needing a third party, but it's always shut down because of the spoiler idea. Well, we should not let it be shut down. Now is the time to donate. I watched another video with the person from the third party, Jill Stein, from the Green Party, who's still active. Right, now is the time to gear up. 2 years away, to gear up for that third party, to make them a viable option. I'm sure that they're probably an option. They're always an option on my ballots whenever I go vote. Of course, I'm in the Northeast. I don't know what goes on in the West, Midwest, and South, but they're always on. They're always there. So I think that you gotta vote for them, even if it is a spoiler idea or a protest vote. Why continue to mark down and check a box for people who have no interest in what you're thinking and what your day-to-day life is? I mean, certainly the most important thing that we should be voting for are on the local elections, right? Your mayors, your city council, aldermen, whatever they're called, and then of course your governors and all that. But the national does have some implications, but it's the little stuff that you should be a part of. And if you put enough third party people in those positions who really are worker oriented, it'll start to send some signals that we're not going to tolerate this anymore. The theme here is that we have been fed a certain thing, whether it's the college education over college, the college education to the degree that it is, with the student loan problem that Congress is now even again, I think, talking about raising the interest rates again, to the tricking of by MAG individuals who are voting against their best interest, putting people in who are against their best interest, to the media being in on it, inundating us with all this bad information, to now this guy saying right here is saying, okay, well, we're still talking about DEI, right? All these different things that keep us divided and bifurcated. I'm going to sum this up at the end here. Divided and bifurcated. BLM, DEI, critical race theory, education, all these types of things are continuing to be a problem for us. And this is something we really have to solve. This is something we really have to solve. And we're not mobilized enough. We get out there for Gaza, which is good. We get out there for other things, which is good. But our economics, when the price of eggs used to be $3, now it's $9. We can't buy a house, can't pay your rent. Got to get a roommate, got to work extra jobs. I remember I had a conversation. I probably said this before. I had a conversation with my cousin. He lives in Tampa. Conversation with his brother, and he was talking about this sister who was a teacher in public school teacher. I don't know if she was a high school or middle school. I don't know what she was, but she had to work a second job to make ends meet. And I'm like, cuz, don't you think that's crazy? I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but he's like, no, there's nothing wrong with. Here's what I think I said. I'm pretty sure I said this, that, I can remember growing up and never seeing my teacher at another school. It would be weird for me to see my teacher working at Target or Walmart as a second job. And he's like, why? What's wrong with that? They got to work. I'm like, the problem isn't that Walmart or Target is beneath them. The problem is that she has to do that to make ends meet as a teacher. She's got her education. She went to school. Why is she working a second job? And my cousin just couldn't see the problem with that. He's like, there's nothing wrong with that. Nah, brother. No, you what's wrong with work family life balance? I mean, coming home and relaxing. You shouldn't be working all the time, 18 hours a day. You got a kid to feed, you got books to read, you got a mini golf to go to, whatever you want to do. You shouldn't be working all the time. And of course, as we just talked about on the other video, they riot in France and talking about, work overtime and this and that and this and what is going on, right? And we just take it, right? We're not getting in the streets to talk about this. Again, I remember the France riots about more hours a week. They're talking about raising the minimum wage, the minimum retirement age, all this crazy stuff. And I could, right? And here's another thing, right? Talking about my son, they were talking about, right, this whole thing about, you don't get taxed on your overtime. That benefit, you do realize that not taxing overtime benefits the employer, because now you'll work more overtime because you think you're not getting taxed for it. Oh man, I'm not going to get taxed for my overtime. I'll do more. I'll get to keep more money. But that's less time away from your life, your family, your kids, your hobbies, what you want to do. It benefits them. They don't got to hire another worker because they just get the same labor out of you. That is not a benefit. It's not a benefit. All right, let's continue on with this conversation here.
I just feel like one of the issues that prevents the Black community from doing anything collectively is because the system that they have put in place has worked and it has divided us. However, we've been going through this for how many years now? Hundreds.
So is it your estimation that the Black community doesn't work together?
Oh no, we do not. No, we don't.
Well,
we don't.
I disagree with you.
I mean,
I disagree 100%. I disagree 100%. Do you live in a Black community?
They're not going to get into it, but I do wish that they would have. She's going to end up cutting him off, and I really wish that she would elaborate. This is just a clip on how she thinks that the Black community works together. I am definitively interested, infinitely interested in how she thinks that the Black community on a mass scale works together. Now, the example he's going to give is going to be bad, but he tries to give some example, but it's just bad. Hit the like button. I do apologize about the quality of the stream here, but I got to have a conversation with my internet company again. Thank you so much for that, Rhonda. Yes, please hit the like button.
I'm not going to say we don't work together as a whole. I'm going to say when it comes to certain initiatives, we just find it very hard.
Like what? Like, let's use your words. Let's go. Like what?
Oh, we can use voting. We can just go back
voting.
to voting.
We voted. 92%, almost 80% of Black men, more than any other demographic, voted. And we showed up.
Black women and the black.
It's a bad example. He's saying that they voted. She's saying they voted. They're both saying that they voted. I have a problem with that, right? I look for the numbers. I don't know if they're not published yet or whatever, but I look for the numbers about how many people voted. Not the percentage of people, right? We know that 90% of Black women voted for Kamala. We know that 83% of Black men voted for Kamala. But how many people voted? That's the real question. How many voters were there? Right? There's and I did have it up. I can't pull it up right now, but there's something like 34 million-ish eligible Black voters. That's just Black voters. 34 millioners. How many of those 34 million who are eligible to vote actually took time to go out and vote? That's the question. Right now, we're having a debate about Target. We're talking about Target and should we boycott Target and all this kind of stuff. This is not falling for the okie doke, right? If everybody stayed home, how much of the bottom line would that affect Target? How much of the bottom line across the country? And I get, listen, if you want to do a mass financial boycott of an industry, you got to do it for weeks, months, years to really get them to see that this is a serious issue. And if you're not willing to do that, even the Montgomery boycott was, I want to say it was like 30-40% of the people, only 20-30%. I can't remember the exact number. So if anybody knows, forgive me. 20 to 30% of the people actually participated in the Montgomery boycott. It wasn't everyone. Everybody couldn't do it. Some people just said, I'm taking a bus. I got to get to work. I don't want to get fired. This is the issue. So how many people, that's why this example that they're talking about here, Karen Hunter and this guest caller, it's a bad example. 90% of that's not showing up. 90% of 100 versus 90% of 9,000 is a big deal, is a bigger, difference. That's what we got to know, is how many people voted. Did we make our voices count? That's the real thing. And what I understand, and again, I can't get the final numbers, but a lot of people chose not to vote because they didn't want Kamala and they didn't want Trump. So a lot of people didn't vote. So it means nothing to say that 90% of black women voted and 80% of black men vote. That's of the voters who voted. Who didn't vote? That's what we got to know. Hey, Dr. L's podcast. I hope all well. Did you read my last comment on your last live stream? I don't remember if I did or not, brother. If you could repeat it for me. But we still have people driving 100K vehicles. There's money everywhere, but in my pocket. Yeah, and that's part of the problem too. Is right. The reason of the vehicle cost. I was looking at my daughter was going out looking for new cars. My daughter's going out looking for new cars. This was like maybe maybe 2 years ago. She's going out looking for new cars. I kept telling her, listen, you're not going to get any. This is actually was during the pandemic. It was right at the tail end of the pandemic, or maybe everything was starting to open up. Yeah, everything was starting to open up. And I said, listen, you're going to get this car now because there's no more cars. And then the estimates was that prices were supposed to drop in like July. I remember that specifically. Oh, everything's supposed to drop. And things will never drop. As long as people are buying them, they're never going to drop. I don't know. That should be a staple that people get. I don't know why people don't think that. Right? Remember, gas prices used to be 83 cents, $1, $1.06, $1.40. Then they bumped them up, shortage, $3, $4. Now they're still running around the $3.05 mark. They're never going back to 83 cents. That's never going to happen. You think that do you think now that the people who own cars or apartments or for rent, they're getting $1,600, $1,700, $1,800? You think they're going to drop it down to $800? Where are y'all getting this from? They're never going back down there. Yes, you're right about that. One day will make a difference, and it's not going to make a difference. I know more than one person that has voted for Obama's first candidacy for president. Some are over 60 years old, and that was their only time they ever voted in their entire life. Exactly. Just touch the comment. If I put it here, it would be off topic. Okay. I'll try to go back and try to get to it. The money is going in the wrong place is what I'm saying. Well, I definitely agree with you. I mean, we have money for other things and we're not collective. This is my thesis today is we're not collectively thinking about it. And I also have another video that I'm going to drop probably tomorrow morning as I do this. I forgot what I named it. But I just did it. One of my driving videos. We're not thinking collectively. We're not thinking collectively. So that's the big issue here. So let's get back to Karen Hunter here.
Black men and black women voting, for the last 20 years, how they voted did not change. But what changed was white women and Mexican men, Hispanic men.
Yeah, but you're undermining you're undermining. Are you here to argue, or do you want to actually have a conversation?
I'm not here to argue.
Okay, well, you sound like you are, because I'm saying to you, the numbers tell everybody that we do vote as a bloc for our own humanity, for our safety, and for our rights.
They don't say that. I don't know why Karen Hunter's, to my knowledge, has always been smarter than this. I don't know why she's saying this. we vote collectively, yes, as far as those who vote. But how many people don't vote? I don't know why she's saying this. There's a ton of people, as Empathic says, who just don't. I know whole religious groups, black religious groups, who don't vote. I don't even understand why she's making this argument. That's why they don't care about what we think. There's two reasons why they don't care what we think. Number one, we don't vote. We don't vote enough. We don't come out in numbers to vote, and our vote doesn't mean anything. And we don't have the financial backing. That's why they don't pay attention to what you want. You think we're going to get reparations? You think we're going to get anything else that we're looking for? They give us some butter biscuits, and they built us a museum, which is great. I mean, we need all some of these things, but we don't have the financial capital to push and to press to make things happen. No, the financial impetus and pressure and power to get reparations. It's crazy. I don't know why Karen is saying this. Smart lady. I don't know why she's saying this. I think the issue is that people fail to see the benefit of casting their votes. The broader issue is that because of the boycotts historically, we enjoy the equality that does exist. It works. Yes, it works over a prolonged period of time. It works over a long period of time. Right? One of the biggest reasons why we got a lot of the things that we got, one of the biggest reasons that we got the things that we got, civil rights, affirmative action, entrance into jobs, things along those lines, is because the United States was facing severe amount of pressure from the quote unquote global South, from the darker world, right? Because there's a lot of different ideas going on overseas. They're casting off, a lot of African countries were casting off the yoke and the bondage of colonialism. Same thing with a lot of Asian countries. That's what Vietnam was really all about. That was really what it was all about. They don't want to be subjected to Western imperialism in Cambodia and all these other South American countries. They were getting rid of colonialism, and on the TV news and on the screen, everybody can see how the U.S. population, the U.S. police were treating its American citizens. Between that and the vast amount of riots in Chicago and Newark and all these different places around the world, people are witnessing how the American people are being, American Black people who were fighting in these wars, Vietnam, Korea, etc., to make the world safe for democracy. So they had to do something about that. That's really why we got a lot of things that we got. And we didn't vote our way to get this stuff. We couldn't vote. We couldn't vote our way to get this stuff. So that's how we really got a lot of this stuff, right? But these boycotts and stuff, that work if you do it over a prolonged period of time, and you really have to make them feel it. And everybody, a substantial amount of people, have to be in on it. Do you think it would be better to concentrate on boycotting one company at a time? Society will see our economic impact. It seems like our community is all over the place. This is exactly what I'm saying, and I got the video that I'm going to drop tomorrow. Thank you for that question. Yes, I don't know about boycotting one place at a time, but the answer is to build our own. That's the answer. We need a Black Target. We need a Black Walmart. That's the answer. That is the answer. You have to build our own. And I think that the reason that they allow us into these corporations, they give us DEI and let us move up the chain, and so we don't buy our own, so that we don't set up our own companies and corporations and take our money and go elsewhere. Everybody comes into our communities. Everybody comes into our communities and sets up their mom and pops and their liquor stores and their convenience stores, and they take all of our finances, and then they don't come to ours, right? If you got a soul food restaurant in your community, you got a Jamaican spot in your restaurant in your community, you ever see how many times have you seen other ethnicities in there eating? It does happen, because I have, when I was on the PD, I had this friend, man, he loved this one soul food spot. He's like, man, let's go here. It was a barbecue joint. I'm like, dude, we ate there yesterday. It's like he loved it. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen. And he was white, or is. So, but a lot of these others, Asians and this, that, and the other, they think collectively, and we don't do that. So your last statement there, it seems like a community is all over the place. That is so right, Cynthia. We're not collective thinkers. The problem with targeting target for DEI is that we weren't getting the benefits in the first place. I don't even understand. I really don't understand the argument there. Target, yes, they gave a couple, and Target and I think Walmart has given some brand names to African brand names some shine and allowed them to sell their wares. Yes, I totally get that. However, however, we're talking about ownership moving up the chain. We're talking about infiltration. We're still trying to get into their place, into their space, instead of building our own. There's a whole separate conversation about, yes, we try to do it, then burning our stuff down. That's a whole separate conversation that needs to be had, and it's a valid conversation. But we're still trying to get them to be. You want our money. You got to employ DEI. Okay, so they employ DEI. And out of the, I don't even know, let's just say 100 board of directors, I'm just throwing out some numbers. I don't know what it is, 50, 100 board of directors, they hire 3. What does that mean for the mass of African-American people across the country? I don't even understand how that makes sense. I don't even understand how, and right, because they don't, and the DEI statistics don't measure how many other forklift drivers and secretaries and whatever, or store employees or store managers get our DEI hires. So I don't even understand the argument there. I'm trying to understand it. I really am. I have a guest you can interview to talk to about politics. If there's no way I can email you, I'll put it in the chat there, brother. My hair's thinner, earning candidacy. Yes, I definitely agree with that about Harris. And then she was just not a good candidate. She was not a good candidate. I mean, she did good in the one debate that they had, but every other interview, she was just a train wreck. Every other interview, she was just a train wreck. And anybody who can't see that is not, is in my estimation, not being honest. She was a train wreck. Yes, I agree, Dr. L. I was part of affirmative action and apartheid benefit and movement at the American U. The Black students withheld purchasing Coke products, for example, as long as it took. I remember that what was going on. I was a young guy when I was going on. So I was a young guy when I was going on the Coca-Cola product thing. You got to hold out. You got to hold out and hold strong. You know, you got to hold out and hold strong. All right, let's finish up with this Karen call here.
Way more than any other group. Period. We're going to always show up. We don't make up. We don't make up enough of the population to make the wholesale changes. But if we don't show up,
I'm not disputing that, Karen.
But if we don't always show up, we don't make up. We don't make up enough of the humanity for our safety and for our rights. Way more than any other group. Period. We're going to always show up. We don't make up. We don't make up enough of the population to make the wholesale changes. But if we don't show up,
I'm not disputing that, Karen. Here's what I would say. When voting came around and all the numbers came out, we had so many black women saying black men didn't step up. We didn't do what we were supposed to do. But when I went back and looked at the empirical data,
stop. You're not gonna call up this show and tell me something that didn't happen here. Take that to the place that it didn't happen. Here we always stood in this space. You didn't hear that on this channel. You didn't hear this from me. So I'm not gonna sit and fight with you over over something that we didn't do. We've been talking.
I think that's a disingenuous argument there to attack the man because that was a narrative. Maybe she didn't say it on her show. That's all I'll play from that. That was that was a narrative that black men are not showing up for black women, in particular for Kamala Harris, and it was. I don't understand that. So I don't understand. But this is what I'm saying. This is part of falling for the okie doke. This is part of falling for the okie doke that Karen Hunter is, unfortunately, in my estimation, doing on this particular show. But it's her show. It's a syndicated radio show. She can call up and cut people off. People call up and she can cut them off and get her point across and all this kind of stuff. But it was just a disingenuous argument. And the reason I wanted to highlight that is because of the two arguments that were made. Is that number one, I think she was just being disingenuous, and number two is that this voting thing. I don't understand why this smart lady was saying the stuff that she was saying about voting, and this is falling for the okie doke. We're being tricked. It's a trick to say that 90% of the black people voted for Kamala Harris, or 90% of black women. That's not true. 90% of the voters, of the people who voted, that's who did it. So, all right. So I want to end this off here with this particular thing that I wanted to show. Is this book And I'm thinking about doing a show about this. I don't know, but I was reading. I wanted to go for Black History Month, which today's the last day. I wanted to talk about the 1619 Project and what that means. And so what happened was I came across this particular book here, which was um, a response to the 1619 Project. So the 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah-Jones in the New York Times came out in, I want to say 2019 or 2020 or something like that, in anniversary, like a 400-year anniversary of what happened to it. And I read this, and so what they did was it was a publication in the New York Times, and then now it has been put into a book. You can actually go onto Amazon or anywhere else and buy a book and read it. So this couple of guys here, their names are David North and Tom Mackaman. They ended up doing a review of the book, and it's called The New York Times Project and the Racialist Falsification of History, Essays, and Interviews. So their thesis of the book is that the thesis of the 1619 project was wrong, incorrect. It was falsified history. They don't know what anybody's talking about. And to me, if you read the book, and I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now, what I wanted to say is that this is part of falling for the okie doke. Now, I agree. Here's what their thesis is. At the end of the day, they're saying that the real problem, and I don't agree with this, but this is their assessment, that the real problem with the 1619 project is that it didn't focus on the real issue, which was capitalism. And because they didn't focus on capitalism, everything else made the book erroneous. I don't agree with that. I think that's absolute nonsense. Maybe I'll do a longer show about that another time. We'll see. However, but I do agree that capitalism is a problem. It is. There's people out there with corporate greed. There are billionaires out there raising up prices. You got drug companies. They find a new drug. Everything's going good. They sell one medication for $2, and then they get a new CEO, and that $2 pill or $3 pill is now worth $200. They do this kind of stuff all the time. And so there's no regulation about that. So that's why we need a third party. So we're continuing to fall for the okie doke between our medical system, between our media, between college education, between our politics, our politicians, just being lied to. We're not making any progress as a community. We don't have a fully functioning community that is thinking collectively. And it's really just sad that we continue to fight the same things. When Malcolm X said, we need our own factories, we need to own the mines, we need to build our own corporations. This is what if we built that stuff, and I recognize we've had some serious pitfalls along the way, but if we built that stuff, we wouldn't be asking Target to hire us or have these DEI initiatives. We wouldn't have that, right? We would probably have more people willing to vote if we had some quality candidates who weren't constantly selling us out to millionaires and billionaires. That's just crazy. That's just crazy to me. So I wanted to highlight this book because I agree with his assessment that capitalism is a problem, and if we stuck together, and this is the part I wanted to, and this is one thing that they do say in the book that I do agree with, in particular with the second video that I played, but the guy with the beard talking. The problem is that we in this country still have a racial animus problem. We know this because when they talk about Obamacare, and they were doing street surveys and things like that, street interviews, they would say, okay, you have a problem with Obamacare, but what about when and they would read off some of the attributes of the Affordable Care Act, like, yeah, okay, I could go for that. And it was they were reading to them Obamacare, and there were other professionals, academic studies were all said the same thing. We can't get along. So this DEI attack on DEI, this attack on Obamacare, this attack on all these different types of things is because we still have a racial problem in this country. And unfortunately, this book that I have highlighted here they don't want to admit that. They want to blame everything on capitalism. I would agree with you that we need more socialist type of policies, more fair policies. I agree with them on that. But you're not going to get us to believe that there's no racial issues going on in the country. When Black women die by far within childbirth, then that's an issue. That's an issue that we got to solve. And the reason we're not solving it is because of racial animus. When Michigan, or when cities in Michigan, Flint, Michigan, and there's been other cities have issues with their water, and when the poverty strikes, the Louisiana and Katrina, and when all that happened, that's an issue that we got to solve. That's an issue. Is it poverty? Yes, it is poverty. Is it poverty concentrated in more African American neighborhoods? Yes. So we got to solve these problems, and the reason that people don't want to solve these problems is because they associate these things with black folks. So put my email in here so Brother Chaos can see it. Let's see. There's another good book on poverty. I can't remember the full name of it, but I do tell you. Okay, well, get it to me. Yeah. So listen. I don't have a problem with this book talking about poverty and corporate greed, and of course their corporate greed was at that time. The 1619 Project was the landowners and all that kind of stuff, which I agree with. I'm not saying that it wasn't. I agree with that. But there's so many problems that these brothers had in this book. So I want to highlight that. I don't know. I may talk about it another time. Appreciate that, Michael Green. I truly appreciate that. Truly appreciate that. So listen, I got a video dropping tomorrow morning, kind of similar. I think it's tomorrow morning, about this type of thing. We gotta learn to work together. We gotta figure out how we're gonna work together, live together, love each other in all this. And we can't keep spinning our wheels, not getting anywhere, talking about the same thing, still talking about voting, still talking about BLM, still talking about police brutality, still talking about all the things that we're talking about. And when are we going to make some real progress and really actually think collectively? There are some groups, and some of you all, I appreciate that. Some of you all have been, and maybe I'll do a show about that one day, highlighting all the things that people have sent me concerning, the different things that have been targeting men, and the different ideas that have different programs that are out there, and it's all important. And if you there's stuff in your neighborhood, in your community, you know about it, then join it, give to it, donate to it as much as you can. But this whole DEI and target and boycotting, targeting, the reason the Montgomery boycott worked is because, and why people wanted to join is because they took the bus and they realized they were being cussed out on the bus and all the kind of different abuses that they were dealing with. I'm going to boycott I'm going to boycott Target because they don't have enough people representing me in the corporate leadership, and we weren't getting them in the first place. And the biggest beneficiaries of affirmative action DEI programs have been white women, and I'm going to boycott that. And it's not like you're taking your money and spending it somewhere else. They're just advocating that you just keep the money in your pocket. To Miles's point. What? Okay, I'm going to sit in the house. I'm not going to go out and grab a cheeseburger. I'm not going to go out and get my favorite shake and my favorite coffee. And I'm not trying to say that this isn't important. I'm not trying to make fun of those who are trying to engage in doing something. But you got to have a bigger vision than one day of doing this. And okay, it's not like you're saying, okay, I usually go to Starbucks every day to get on a coffee, but now today I'm going to go to the Black-owned restaurant to get it. That's not what we're saying. That I would definitely be down with. All right, so that's it. I just want to do that. I do appreciate you, Michael Green. Appreciate the super sticker. Appreciate you, Chaos Rain. Thank you to Empathic Char. Let's see. There's a setup. People are spending money. It's a setup. People are spending money seeking validation from people who won't care about them, faking until you're making ensures you don't make it. It's stealing from your future. Yeah, I agree with you, Empath. I agree with that. Excuse me. I agree with that. Yeah. We gotta change where we're thinking, right? Watch what we're watching, the media, politicians, the voting, what we're doing, where we're going, our education system. It's horrible. It's horrible about the way we're living. And take the lessons from other places, right? Take the lessons from other places. I specifically remember reading about what was going on in France, about particularly when they were talking about increasing the amount of hours that they worked. And I was in France. Listen, I've been to France. I walked around at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and these people are all sitting down there eating their eating their croissants and drinking their teas and coffees and stuff. Nobody's that they're not working like slaves. They're not doing that. Nobody's doing that. Don't ever get tricked into think you got to work you got to work your whole life. Don't ever get tricked into think you got to work and slave and grind away and work 10 and 15 and 20-hour days. No. I did very little overtime in the police department, particularly when my kids got bigger and I didn't need it. No. Live within your means. I remember I was going to buy my first house, and they tried to get me to up, because of what I made or had the potential to make. They want to buy the house on what I had the potential to make. I'm like, no, we're going to base this this house on the income that I have. This is the income that I have. This whatever I was making at that time. That's what you put in this little box right here. Put that in the box. Don't boost up the number so you can get a bigger 6% commission. And I'm struggling. Now I gotta do overtime. I got it. We gotta figure this. We gotta figure this out. You getting this house and these cars and these $100,000 cars. I started to tell a story about my daughter. She didn't buy the car that she was looking for at that time. But then, and I can remember looking around a lot, and it was a car that I was like, oh, this is a nice car. $80,000. They used to sell condos for that. They used to sell condos, a whole condo for $80,000. This car was $80,000. Getting caught in the matrix, getting caught up in this stuff, and the reason that they're selling it for that is because somebody along the line is going to buy it. You can bet if people stop buying those $80,000 cars, they'll drop the price of them. Either I'm going to stop. There's two things going to happen. Either they're going to stop making them, or they're going to drop the price. Particularly if people don't have the money. Now you buy a car. It used to be 4 or 5 year. I'm sure you all know 4 or 5 year loans. It's not a 6 and 7 years. What are we talking about? All right. So that's my spiel for today. I do apologize about the low quality of the stream here. I'll try to do something about that in the future. Take care of yourselves. Thank you to Michael Green. Thank you to everyone else. Please hit the like button. Much love and peace, y'all.